Well, welcome everybody. We're just thrilled to have you all with us, join us from wherever you're joining us from. I mean, if you're joining us from next door, we're really thrilled to have all of you on. We talk about the people from it, that are joining us from a distance, and that's just kind of a phenomenon that is surprising to us. But it's great that we can touch so many people, and even at such distances. Welcome, 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 everyone. My name is Marty Mascari. I am a contractor under the North Central Texas Council of Governments in the greater Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area. And the Council of Governments is about 2 blocks from Jerry Jones's Cowboy Stadium. So if you're in Dallas and you want to see the landmark of the North Central Texas Council of Governments, you can drive around Jerry Stadium and you'll find it. Believe me, you won't see much, but it's there. So welcome. And so I serve as a contractor with them. I serve a 14 county area in the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area. And in Texas, counties are really relatively small to where I came from. I grew up in San Diego, California, where counties are just huge. The territory I serve here would probably be a fraction of one county out in California. So even though it's a lot of counties, the counties aren't that big. But we serve the greatest Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area, and we're thrilled to have our partners at the James L. West Center, who we're very blessed to have in the greater Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area, here today to talk to us about dementia caregiving, building skills, strengths, and understanding. Before we get started, I just want to talk just briefly about CEUs, and I'm going to let Jamie talk first, since the CEUs for this event are graciously provided by the James L. West Center. And so I'm going to let you start with that, Jamie, if you would.
Yes, thank you, Marty. We are happy to provide 1.5 CE credits or continuing education credits for social workers, licensed professional counselors, nursing, and certificate of attendance for today's program. In order to receive your certificate, you have to complete the program evaluation that's going to be sent out after today's program. It is a Survey Monkey evaluation. It doesn't take maybe 3 minutes, 4 at the most, to complete the evaluation. We do ask that everybody complete the evaluation because we do appreciate the feedback and we do use it. But if you are wanting that certificate, it's a requirement to complete the evaluation. We leave the evaluation up for about a week and then we close it. And that's the time we'll start to process all of these certificates. So if you will please allow us up to 4 weeks for you to receive your certificate and get it to you by email.
Great. In addition to the survey that, I'm sorry, I'm trying to hurry up and get the pretest in. In addition to the survey that Jamie has, and once again, please note that the Survey Monkey for this webinar, and not the one that I'm putting in the chat, the post-Survey Monkey survey, is required if you're interested in getting any certificate at all for CEUs or certificate of attendance. So please note that. But in addition to that, there's also a Google evaluation survey. That's for our funding and for our reporting back on the goals and objectives we set forth when we applied for the funding to do our part of this. And so please, we ask you to complete both of those after the webinar. But if you haven't already, if you would take just a second now and complete the pre-survey that I just put in the chat. If you haven't already done so, it just takes a second. And there's some post-survey questions in the post-survey that link up with the pre-survey that once again is one requirement from one of the funders that helps us out. So I'm turning it back over to you, Jamie, and thank you so very much.
Thank you, Marty. And we are talking today about dementia caregiving. And we're going to cover several different topics, but really these topics are all going to be about building your skills, gaining a greater understanding of this disease and best practices, if you will, or what I like to start calling them is non-negotiables in care that we provide for our loved ones, but also the care that we provide ourselves. So the strength that it takes to love and provide care for somebody else. We're going to talk about that. So we will really talk briefly about dementia, define it, make sure that we're all on the same page and understanding of what dementia is and what it isn't. And then we're going to talk about this theory of retrogenesis. And this theory is hopefully going to help us as care partners, caregivers, better understand the progression that somebody with dementia goes through and how that affects them as a person, but how we can relate that back to the skills that they have and how we can work with the skills that they have, even as this disease progresses and gets worse over time. So we'll spend some time talking about that theory. Then we're going to talk about, again, those best practices or those non-negotiables in care. So really in diving into a lot about communication, how we meet our person where they're at, how we can, again, work with the abilities that they still have less, reduce their stress, reduce our stress. And then I want to take some time to talk about building the strength of a caregiver. So self-care, whether you're a family caregiver, professional, or both, how do we build our strength so we can continue to provide the best care for our person in front of us? So to start off with, what is dementia? And I hope that most of you on this program could easily tell us what dementia is and what it isn't. But I want to go over it because dementia is not a specific disease. It is a group of symptoms that somebody has that affects their day-to-day functioning or their ability to get through their normal activities. It affects it in a way that they were not affected before they started to have symptoms of dementia. And there are over 100 different types of dementia. And part of those, or the most common type of dementia that we hear of, is Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease is the most common type of dementia, but there's vascular dementia, Lewy body dementia, frontotemporal dementia, Parkinson's dementia, you name it. There's 100 different types, but the ones I just listed off are our most common types of dementia that we have. And dementia is a progressive disease. So in the dementias we're talking about a neurodegenerative cognitive disorder that somebody has. So it's a brain disease, or somebody goes into brain failure and it gets worse over time. So it's a progressive illness. And if somebody doesn't pass away from something else, they will pass away from the complications of the progressive dementia that they have. Dementia is not a normal part of aging. Please know, please hear, please spread the word about this. Not just because we get to a certain age does not mean that we or our loved ones are going to get dementia. It is not a normal part of aging. It's becoming more common diagnosis that we see, just we're better able to diagnose it. It is our greatest risk factor is age, and we have our population, our older population is continuing to get older. We're all getting older, right? But as we age, we are seeing more and more people diagnosed because our population is growing, getting older, and we're better able to diagnose it. But please know that we are not destined to get dementia. It is not a normal part of aging. And there are several ways, and we have several programs. They're on the North Texas Council of Governments Area Agency on Aging YouTube channel. It's on our YouTube channel about ways to reduce your risk. And then just see what the risk factors are and how can I reduce my risk factors so I can age with a healthy brain. But also know that dementia is not contagious. It's not just because we're around somebody that we're going to get it, or the things that our loved ones or the persons that we're working with, they haven't caused it. It's not that they've done one thing that has caused them to get dementia. Dementia still is a very complex illness. It's a very complex disease. It's hard to diagnose. It's not impossible. We can diagnose it pretty accurately, but it's still very complex. And the more we learn about it, the more complex it gets. So we can't really even say we know exactly what causes Alzheimer's disease. We know what Alzheimer's disease is. We can fairly predict how it will progress through an individual's brain, but what causes it, we do not know yet. That's what the researchers are doing. That's why we hope to put more money into research for this disease so we can really find out and understand what causes it so we can provide better treatments and possibly even a prevention. But right now, we don't have that. So we're working on how do we care for those that have it. So with dementia, and it's this group of symptoms that somebody has that interferes with their day-to-day life, it's going to affect different types of brain functions. And typically when we hear the word dementia, somebody's got dementia, one of the first things that come to our mind is, oh, well, they've got memory issues. And then most of the population don't think anything more than that. It's, oh, they just have a hard time remembering. They can't remember, their short-term memory is not there. Well, we know with dementia, and you probably know that it's more than just memory issues. It is a brain disease. So it's one of the best definitions I've ever heard of dementia is that somebody goes into brain failure. So this type, the dementias affect the brain and it affects all area of the brain. And let's be honest and think about it. Our brain controls everything that we do. So it does control our short-term memories and our long-term memories, but it also controls our communication, how we communicate and how we perceive or take in communication. It controls our mood. It controls our ability to take in all the stimulation that we have. And it controls our ability to cope. It's our digestive system. It's our heart beating. It controls everything. And so when there's a disease that's attacking the brain, it's going to affect all areas of our brain. And you can see on the screen there some of the areas that are affected. Of course, memory that we talked about, but our thinking is going to be challenged. And from the early stages, just a little bit, but as the disease progresses or it gets worse over time, our thinking is going to become harder and harder and more challenged. Our reasoning, our ability to problem solve, to have good judgments. Again, our language skills, and this is how we use language to communicate, but also how we comprehend language, our personalities, our behaviors, and then our abilities to care for oneself. So it's either some of the areas that our brains control that will be affected because of dementia. And dementia here, you can see this it's an umbrella term because it's that group of symptoms, and there's over 100 different types of dementia underneath the umbrella term. Alzheimer's disease, again, is the most common type of dementia that we have. It does account for 60 to 80% of all the persons diagnosed with the dementia have Alzheimer's type dementia. But then there's Lewy body and vascular dementia, frontotemporal dementia, and then the other dementias. There at the bottom, it talks about mixed dementia, and this is becoming a more common diagnosis to where we are seeing that there is more than one type of dementia. So a lot of times somebody might have the signs of Alzheimer's disease, but they also probably might have vascular dementia, or they have Lewy body dementia and Alzheimer's disease. So they can have two or more different types of dementia in the same brain. And so it's a mixed picture. And so they call that a mixed dementia. And we are seeing that being diagnosed more and more. But let's take a look at the brain here. And if you've been on one of our programs, you've seen this image because this image is so powerful. And you can see on the left-hand side is we have normal brain. Somebody with a normal brain, the right-hand side, somebody's very late stage Alzheimer's disease, or they've passed away from Alzheimer's disease or dementia that made it to the later stages of the disease. Somebody with a normal brain, their brain is about 3 pounds. So your brain, my brain is 3 pounds, and that's a normal, fully functioning brain. Somebody with late stage dementia, the brain is about 1 pound. So there are structural, physical changes that are happening in the brain due to the dementia. The brain's going into failure. So we are seeing an atrophy of the brain. We're seeing a loss of the nerve cells or the brain cells and the neuronal connections. And just seeing the image here on the screen, you can compare the healthy brain and the advanced Alzheimer's brain, and you can just see the differences. There are permanent changes that happen. Now, they don't happen overnight. This is a gradual progression. each person's progression is so different, and their decline is different, and how long it is for them to decline, but they are declining over time. So these are gradual changes. And a few things I want to point out here are, so this on screen, can y'all see this? Can y'all see my markings on the screen? Probably not.
What do you asking? I'm sorry.
Can you
Not
see
very
my
well.
marking? Not very well. The
No,
little
it's very
markings I'm
faint.
doing. Let me see if I can. Is that better?
That's better.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to point out a few things about the changes that are happening and how that affects the people that we love and work with. So I drew a circle over here on the temporal sides, the temporal lobes of the brain, and this is where our ears are at. So these are our temporal lobes. You have your right one and your left one. You draw a circle there, but if we go to the brain that has advanced Alzheimer's disease and we draw circles in the same area, we can see, well, there's some loss there. And what that looks like is our temporal lobes house a lot of our communication. So it houses our vocabulary, our ability to speak, to put a sentence together, have it make sense, share it with somebody in front of us, but also our ability to comprehend language as well. So hear somebody else talking to us and for it to make sense, and we can converse or we can follow instructions, etc. But as dementia affects the brain, that's going to affect somebody's ability to communicate and comprehend. Now, I should have said this earlier, but know that it doesn't completely take it away. There's still a lot there left. And I mentioned earlier working with somebody's abilities. So what we want to focus on working with what they still have left. So knowing somebody with a 3-pound normal brain, like you and I'm able to speak to you, you're able to comprehend, take notes, ask questions, etc., because we have 3-pound brains. But if our brains were advanced into dementia, this would be much harder. It would be harder for me to communicate my ideas to you using language, because that part of my brain would have some damage to it, or parts of that area of my brain may no longer be there anymore. Or comprehending. I'm not, that part of the brain for me to comprehend somebody giving me instructions or talking to me may be really damaged, or it's not there, so I can't comprehend like I used to. Now, there's still some parts there, and I need to work with what I have left. What dementia doesn't change, and I'll talk about a lot of things dementia doesn't change or take away, but it doesn't take away our need to communicate. Our wants, our wishes, our likes, our dislikes, our excitement, our sadness, it doesn't take away that need. What's changing is how we communicate. But looking at these images of the brain, well, okay, since mom is really, when she talks, it's really having a hard time understanding her because she just doesn't make sense. The words she's using don't make sense. Well, it's not that she's not trying or needing to communicate. It's just how she's able to communicate what's changing. And we're the ones with the 3-pound brain that need to learn different skills, which is what we'll talk about today, so we can effectively communicate with a changing brain of somebody that has dementia. So another circle I'll draw is right here, is where our hippocampus is. We got 2 of those. And then come over here and draw a circle where that hippocampus is on the advanced Alzheimer's disease or advanced dementia brain. The hippocampus area of our brain houses our short-term memory and our ability to learn new information. So our hippocampus, right now, your hippocampus is working for you because it is taking in the information right now. It's taking it in and it's processing it, and it's going to store it where it needs to be stored throughout your brain later on today or tonight when you're asleep. But your hippocampus is working, and we can use the short-term memory, and it works effectively. Somebody with dementia, Alzheimer's disease, advanced dementia, that part of the brain is either severely damaged or it may no longer be there anymore. So their ability to learn something new, remember something, or even pull from their short-term memory might be impossible because they're not physically able to pull from their short-term memory because that part of the brain might not be there, or they're not physically able to remember something short-term because that part of the brain is not there for them to work for them. So this, you can see this pop up if they are If they don't remember what they had for breakfast, they're asking you the same question over and over again, telling you the same story because they don't remember that they just told you that story or they asked you that question and you answered it because they're not able to record that information. And another area I'll point out is our frontal lobe. So our frontal lobe is where our forehead is here. This area of our brain houses a lot of our personality, our social manners, our graces, our social graces, I should say. Our feelings are not our feelings and emotions, but how we regulate our feelings and emotions are here as well. So when we see somebody that becomes easily agitated, or they say or do something that's very uncharacteristic, or maybe it's embarrassing, or maybe it's offensive. It's not that they're trying to be embarrassing or offensive. It's that part of their brain that regulates their emotions, or even that filter that we have to stop us from doing or saying something inappropriate. That's all housed up here in the frontal lobe, and that area of their brain may be severely damaged or not working or not there in that moment. So that cuss word comes out, or that insult comes out, or they scream, or they bite. But they're still trying to tell us something. That's a form of communication. They don't have their words anymore, but they do have their actions and their expressions. And we see this a lot because of the changes that are happening in the frontal lobe. So just pointing out a few of these things as changes the changes that dementia has to the brain. Now, please know that dementia affects each person differently. And each dementia is going to affect each person differently depending on what type of dementia they have and where it starts. But that really the core message here is that dementia affects an individual and how they're able to function throughout their day. Now, this doesn't change them as a person. It just changes how they're able to function. And this is where this theory of retrogenesis is going to come in and helps us kind of bridge the gap of understanding of what this looks like as somebody progresses through dementia. And this theory of retrogenesis, it really is suggesting that somebody is deteriorating or they're progressing through dementia in reverse order that their brain developed from birth. So it looks like maybe they're regressing in time. Okay, so they, 2 years ago, mom could remember, she had her short-term memory. She could remember that she was the 80-year-old woman, that had just moved into a community and was making new friends. And her husband had just passed away. She could remember that. But as dementia hit and set in and she's starting to regress in time, well, now it's a couple of years later, she doesn't remember maybe that she had just moved into this community and is trying to make new friends. And so now it's time for her to go home because her home she doesn't remember as this community. Her home is the home she lived in for 50 years. And then as her disease progresses and regresses more into time, regresses back in time, now maybe she doesn't remember their husband passed away. So she's looking for her husband. And then as it regresses, and maybe it's me as her daughter that's providing care for her, she doesn't remember me as her daughter because I'm too old to be her daughter, because where she's at in her timeline is her daughter was much younger, maybe in her teens or middle school years. So I'm too old to be her daughter, but I can be a sister or a really good friend because the connection of trust between human beings doesn't go away. It's just maybe that relationship and how I know you is what's changing. And then they regress into time into more their early childhood to their very much childhood from there. So it's like they're regressing in time. Now, this is not a perfect theory, but it's pretty good. And the other thing with this theory of retrogenesis is what we want to compare is as they're regressing in time and they're losing memories, right? So they're regressing back. They're also losing some of their skills and abilities. So they might not be able to do their finances because that was a skill and ability we learned later on in life. But if I'm regressing back now and maybe I'm in my, 10-year-old years, right? Well, I might be able to tell you what a $5 bill is and a $10 bill, but I'm not able to do my finances or manage that checkbook or pay the bills or do all that stuff. That's going to be much harder for me because that skill I learned later. And it's kind of like I'm unlearning those skills. Does Same with driving, same with managing medications, but also as it gets down into those other things that we do, maybe it's same as cooking, following a recipe. Running a lawnmower. They might be able to push a lawnmower, but can they get it up and running? Can they fix it like they used to? Because those skills were something learned later. And as they're unlearning those skills as their disease progresses, we want to think about that. And it's just a comparison here. And also, excuse me, you can see here this scale, which I'm going to show you a larger version, and I will make sure that we send you a handout that you can actually print out and you can actually see what's on here. But I want to point out that on here you have on the very left-hand side is this looks through stages, and it's looking through mild, moderate, and severe. So early, middle, late stages. The second column says a FAST scale. And this is a scale that's based on, it's the functional assessment staging tool that doctors can use, and they use this to help them understand where their patient is through the progression of their disease. And you can see at the later stages, it's numbers 1 through 7, but stages 6 and 7 have like 6A, 6B, 7A, 7B, 7C. And those are just help them kind of stage where their patient's at. Now, this third column is that skill level or that clinical characteristic. And this is where a lot of caregivers get stuck or we kind of fixate in it. It's important to know. Hopefully this can help you understand, to have a better idea of where your person, your loved one, or your person you're working with is at in the stage of the disease. Because we need to know, we need to have an idea of where a person is at so we can modify our care techniques. But this really has some common clinical characteristics of somebody in this general stage of dementia. Now, hear me when I say they're common, they're typical, and they're clinical characteristics, okay? This just really helps us stage where they might be. But what I want us to look at is the last two columns, because this is where it's going to help us bridge the gap of, okay, well, mom might be in stage 6A, but what does that mean for me? Because this is going to help us focus on where they're at in the disease, but where they're at and where their abilities are. What can they still do? Instead of us focusing on what's gone or what they cannot do, let's focus on what they can do. And this is at the core of dignity and humanity care. What can they still do? Because people with dementia can do a lot of things. We just have to adjust our care approach, the environment, the activity to match what their abilities still are. So if we remember the picture I showed you of the brains, dementia doesn't take away everything. There's still a lot there. We just have to figure out what's left. And sometimes it's what's there from moment to moment and work with what they still have. Again, we're the ones with the 3-pound brains, so we can accommodate the disease. So let me show you this. This hopefully is a little bit bigger and you see it a little bit better, but you have on the left-hand side the stages, whether it's early, middle, late, or you have that numbered stage. Then you have the common clinical characteristics. Now, please know that people with dementia are not going to fit perfectly into a box, just like you and I don't fit perfectly into a box. And they can fluctuate between these stages. So it can be, appears on stage 4 and 5. Well, mom might be, and you might see some characteristics that she has in stage 3 and stage 5. Because mom's a unique individual and this is how this disease is affecting her. Maybe she has some other illnesses she's living with, etc. Okay. But this just helps guide possibly where mom, my loved one, my person might be in the stages of the dementia. But I want us to look at those last two columns. So this is saying it's an approximate developmental age. So this is comparing as somebody's regressing in their disease progression, where they are developmentally compared to somebody that's growing up. Okay, so age development. Now I want to take a break and I want to make sure everybody's hearing me. You're listening to me. Stop reading the screen for a second because I want you to hear what I'm telling you. And what I want you to know is that as we look through this theory of retrogenesis and we're comparing it to ages, please hear me when I say we are not suggesting or comparing somebody with dementia to a child. That is not what we are doing, and this is not what this suggests. This is going to help us figure out maybe skill-wise where they are, but we will not and we do not treat people with dementia like children. Please hear me when I say that. And that's not what we're suggesting here. What I want us to see is that if I think mom's probably in stages 4 and 5 of the disease, so I can see her having some of those changes that are happening, some common changes. Well, then let me look at this developmental age. Well, between stages 4 and 5, well, this chart suggests she could be anywhere between a 5 and a 12-year-old. Again, we're not treating her like a 5 to 12-year-old. It's just what her abilities can be are the same as somebody that's between the ages 5 and 12. So we ask ourselves, well, what can a 5 to 12-year-old do? Well, they can do most things, right? They're able to dress themselves. They're able to pick out their outfits for the day. Do they always match? Probably not all the time, but that's okay. Every once in a while, they may need help putting on their clothes if it's complicated or they need to tie their shoes, but they're still able to do it. They are probably not managing finances, but can they help, sort the change, right? Probably not fixing a full meal, but where are there areas that they can help? They can help add stuff to the ingredients. They can set the table. They can unload the dishwasher, right? So we're looking at, well, what can this age group do? What are those abilities? They are still oriented to time and person. They recognize familiar friends and family. They may not be able to tell you, your fourth cousin's name, but they're in the family, right? Okay. They can you generally still use the restroom on their own. They may need reminders, 5 to 7-year-old might need a reminder, but can generally still use the restroom on their own. You see where I'm going with this? We want to look at, well, what are they still able to do? And this is function, purpose, worthwhile stuff, but also the fun activities. Now, again, please stop reading the screen, listen to me. We're not going to provide persons with dementia activities that are the age for children. We want to provide them activities that are adult and that are dignified and respectful, but the complexity level of the activity might need to be on the same level as somebody that's, 10 years old. So let's say we want to do art. We like to enjoy it. We enjoy art. We like to do it. It's relaxing. It's stressful. Well, what would that look like? We're not going to come in and bring, Barbie and, Transformers coloring books and activity books. We're not doing that because those are for 10-year-olds and children. But we might find some activity books or games that are dignified and respectful that are for adults, but the complexity level is on the same level of somebody that's developmentally at the 10-year-old. Okay. So I hope this is making sense. And I hope this is kind of a great way to say, okay, this can really help me, understand where my person is at in the disease state, but also really for me to start looking at what are we still able to do? What can they still do? Even in the later stages of the disease, when they're in the late stages or the stage 7 of the disease. So those late stages, maybe they're not talking anymore, or when they are talking, it's just a few words here and there, but they're still able to engage in their environment in a very sensory way. So they can touch fabric and feel how smooth, like nice blankets are. They can smell candles. They can be out in nature and feel the air on them. They can hear the running water. So we connect with them at a very sensory level because that's what they're able to do. And that's how we know they can connect with us. Now, they're not preparing meals. They're probably going to need assistance with their meals, but we know how to interact with them and provide that care in a very respectful and dignified way. But also understanding, well, this is where my person is at on the stage of the disease. But I want to look at what can they still do. So it might be asking if my loved one's in stage 7, Well, it looks like they're operating at a stage of a 3-year-old. We're not treating them like a 3-year-old. It's just, well, what can a 3-year-old still do? And I want to adopt my care, accommodate, change my care to match the abilities and the skills that would match somebody in stage 7, late stage dementia, that can also be similar to somebody that is 3 years old. Hope that makes sense. And I hope this is a great way for you to start saying, okay, because it can help us brainstorm, it can help us be more creative and problem solve. Well, why, even some things, well, for example, why is mom not leaving my side? Why is all of a sudden I've become her anchor, but also the person she gets mad at the most? Like, mom gets so mad at me all the time, but she doesn't want me to leave her side. Well, let's think about this. Is there some separation anxiety, right? That she might not have had before, but as she regresses into time or regresses in her timeline, well, you might be the only person that she knows is familiar to her and that you are safe. And generally, when we feel really safe with somebody, we're kind of ugly to them too at times, right? We can be, because I know I'm safe with them. And this is just kind of human nature. And as we do this when we're younger as well, separation. I might yell and be mean to my mom, but I don't want her to leave my side. I certainly don't want her to leave me, at a daycare, right? But I might be mean to her because I am not as in control of my emotions and I'm trying to figure out this big world, right? Well, it can be the same. So I am not as in control of my emotions as dementia progresses. That regulation of my emotions is not there. So I might lash out. I might say something that I don't mean, right? That might be hurtful, but I also need you here because I feel safe with you. So I hope this helps us understand where our loved ones are at, but that we can accommodate and problem solve and be more creative in the care that we provide because we understand where they're at and what their skills and their abilities are, and we can accommodate as the disease progresses their skills and abilities. So the next thing I want to talk about, if I can move my things, are those essential types of care. So these are non-negotiables. These are essential things with care, and they're really a lot based in communication. But I want us to think about, as we're talking about, the disease progression, early, middle, and late stages, if we can focus on these 3 categories of normalization, supportive care, and then sensory and comfort. And these, 4 areas of, if I can focus on this, we always want to keep things as normal as possible, because just because my loved one has dementia does not mean they're not a grown adult that live full lives and have responsibilities and they're worthwhile and they have purpose. So I want to keep things normal, keep the environment as normal, keep our routine as normal as possible, keep those roles and responsibility as normal as we possibly can. But as the disease progresses, we know we're going to have to add more supportive care. Okay, this might be where we come in and we're there more often. We are going to have to provide more hands-on care for them as their needs change over the course of the disease process. And then in the later stages, adding that comfort care and that sensory connection, because we know they can connect with their senses. But it's still keeping things as normal as possible, continuing to add support where they need support. Again, matching our care to what their abilities are, and then adding that support and comfort. And we can see this, and I'll just go through this real quickly, some things that we'll start to see changing in the early stages. But we know, particularly with Alzheimer's disease, they will become more forgetful of recent events, recent conversations. Their communication is going to start changing. So the words that they use to communicate, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for them to express themselves verbally. They'll might forget how to forget people's names, misuse pronouns, start to just lose vocabulary and become very vague in their descriptions of stuff. So it's, it's the thing, I need the thing. And they can easily become more agitated, because I can only imagine how frustrating it is to not be able to communicate like you once could. If English was their second language, we might start to see some crossover there as they start to revert back, again, regress back into their first language that they learned. As the disease progresses in more to the middle stages, we're going to see greater declines in their ability to use language or use words to communicate, but also that comprehension is going to be a lot harder. It's going to be harder for them to really make sense of what other people are saying or instructions that they're given. Their speech may not make any sense, but they're still going to communicate. And we can learn to adapt, and we can learn their language, the new language that they're trying to work with us or tell us. They even might start seeing or having a harder time recognizing close family members. So, and it may not be the ones that they see every day, but it might be the kid that visits every couple of weeks. It could be, well, is that, and they're just confused. It's not that they are confusing that I love or trust them, but it's just how they know them. So it could be, well, is that my son or is that my brother? So just starting to confuse that. Or they start calling them by the wrong name, by calling them by a family member's name. And that's what their name is. And that's okay. And this is where we learn to just meet them where they're at. It's okay if you're getting called by the wrong name, but that really, they're still connecting with you. And then into the later stages, of course, severe changes happen in their communication. So they may have a few words a day, and maybe 10 words at the most. Now their social chit chat will stay intact. So that, hi, how are you? It's good to see you. The weather sure is good. You know, those short social things that we've been doing ever since we were little will stay with them because that's what we've known the longest, right? They're going to have a harder time making their needs known, but they won't stop making their needs known. So this is where we do see more expressions, harder expressions. So this is where they might cry out, they might bite, might become more agitated with care, because we might also need to slow down and our communication needs to change to them. So they understand before we start doing with them, they understand more. So their actions and their expressions become their communication. But I want us to watch this video, and this is going to explain, and if you've seen some of our stuff, you've probably seen this video before, but it's good to see it again. But this really helps us understand. It'll kind of walk through that regression in time with memories as well, but also how we store memories and what's important about our memories, how we are regressing in time, but how we work with our person going forward, and truly understanding what's important on how we work with them. So let's watch this quick analogy. Nope. I got to reshare because I did not share my sound. Hold on one second. Sorry, y'all. Here we go.
I'd like to explain dementia to you in the way that it was explained to me. I'd like to picture that I'm an 80-year-old woman standing here, and that beside me there is a bookcase that's as tall as I am and is filled with books. Now, each of those books represents a fact or a date or a number or a memory that I've gained in the last 80 years of my life. So right at the top, my most recent memory, so what I had for breakfast, getting dressed this morning. The next shelf down might be things that are a little bit less recent, so maybe my last holiday, what I did at Christmas, maybe the last time you came to visit me. The next shelf down by my shoulders will be my 70s, my 60s, my 50s, my 20s will be down by my knees, and my childhood memories will be all the way down by my feet. So that is the bookcase that makes up me. Now, when I get hit by dementia, what's going to happen is that my bookcase is going to start to rock. And I'm going to start losing those books, starting from the ones on the top, which may explain why my short-term memory is likely to be affected first. So, as my dementia progresses, I might find myself having lost not only the top shelf, but the next one down and the next. I might find myself living in the 1950s. Now, embrace my reality. I go into my kitchen today to make myself a cup of tea. What do you think? Given that I'm expecting a 1950s kitchen, what's a likely accident that I might have? If you've thought putting an electric kettle on a hob, that's absolutely right. Now, as my carer, as my relative, you might be tempted to say, we shouldn't let her make tea anymore, that's really dangerous. But there is a simpler solution, which might be to just change my kettle from an electric one to a whistling kettle, because that's what I'm expecting, and I know how to use that. And I learned how to use a whistling kettle all the way down in my childhood, so that memory is likely to stay with me a lot longer. That's not going to help everybody with dementia, but it might help me at this particular stage. Now, I talked about this one bookcase that's got all these facts and memories and numbers, and that's quite a flimsy bookcase, and when that gets hit by dementia, it rocks a lot. Now, this bookcase is representing a part of my brain called the hippocampus, which is more susceptible to dementia. However, my feelings and my emotions, the things that make me who I am and the reasons why you love me, they're all managed separately by a different part of the brain called the amygdala. And that's all here in a separate bookcase. It's a really strong oak bookcase. And when that gets hit by dementia, it's not going to move very much. Let me explain to you how the two bookcases work together. So when I was a child, I had a teacher. He's on the hippocampus bookcase. He was incredibly inspiring. And the way that he made me feel, inspired, in awe, that is stored in a separate book on my amygdala bookcase. So the teacher is on the hippocampus, but the way I felt, that's going to be managed by the amygdala. Now let's bring it back to today, where I'm the 80-year-old woman. I have dementia. You come to visit me. So that's a fact, that happens here. And we have a blazing row. I'm probably going to feel upset, sad, angry, and that's going to go onto the amygdala in a book here. You might go away thinking, it doesn't really matter. She'll forget that I even came to visit, let alone that we had a row. And you know what? You're probably right. That book will probably go. But what's likely to stay with me are those feelings, those emotions, that anger, and with nothing to relate it to, it might be really confusing for me. But let me leave you with a positive example. Say you come to visit me, and you take me out to the seaside, and we have a great time. So here it is, the seaside, the waves, the great time, the feelings of safety and happiness and love that I feel are held over here in the amygdala. As soon as we get back to my house, I've forgotten where we've been. That book is gone. And you might think, oh, it's just not worth it. Why do I bother? I don't think I'm going to carry on visiting her. But look over here. Those feelings, that safety, that warmth, that's going to stay with me for a lot longer. So I would like to encourage you to continue to visit and to care for the people that you know, relatives, friends who have dementia, and to remember that there is more to the person than the dementia. Thank you.
I love that video for a variety of reasons. Not only does it kind of summarize what I talked about, the regression, right? You go back in time, but what's important, it's how we make somebody feel. And this is true whether you have dementia or not. It's important on how we make you feel. Oh. So some non-negotiables that I was talking about, these essential types of care that are just going to build off what the video talked about. I'm really involved in our communication. It really comes down to meeting our person where they're at. So we need to know what their abilities, what their skills are, where they're at in their disease progression, but where they're at in their time frame. But one thing we do want to always start with is to never say the word remember. They don't remember that they don't remember that they don't remember. And us saying, remember, Mom, we've said this, remember I told you that, don't you remember? Well, they don't remember, and they're not going to. So us using that word can be kind of mean and cruel. So let's just take it out of our vocabulary. I want you to remember to not say remember, okay? But I'm going to tell you a word that we can use in here just a second. But know that, and going on with the video, that our nonverbal communication is key. Absolutely key. I talked about their losing their language, that comprehension is going to become harder and harder for them. So as they're losing the ability to understand words, they're going to find another way to make sense of the world or make sense of what we're trying to tell them. And they're always going to do that through what they can see. And we all do this, regardless of dementia. We all do this. We are picking up on the nonverbals when we are talking or conversing with somebody. We pick up on their tone of voice. We pick up on their facial expressions. We pick up on their emotions that they carry. And we pick that up and we take a lot of stock into that. And usually the words are the last thing that we put any stock into because we're picking up on their facial expressions, their tone of voice, their nonverbal, what their emotions are, how they carried themselves. And that's what we process. The words are kind of an afterthought, right? You can see the graph there that our tone of voice and our body language carry way more weight than the actual words that we use. Now, our words are important. I want to say that. But it's this nonverbal that becomes even more important for persons with dementia as the language, this vocabulary starts to go away. So we need to really ramp up and start using, well, I know that they have the ability to read nonverbal communication from very early stages all the way up to the very end stages. They will be able to read nonverbal communication. That's one of the skills and abilities they will always have. So we have to become masterful at our nonverbal communication and really understand that it is the how we say it or we communicate it that's more important than the actual words or the what. So this is how we become very masterful. Again, this is a non-negotiable. So when we do that, we have to be very aware of our nonverbal. So we have to ask ourselves, what is our face saying? What is our tone of voice? What is the emotions that I have? If I'm exhausted and I'm just kind of carrying that exhaustion, are they picking up on that exhaustion? If I am impatient, but the words I'm using are helpful, they're going to pick up on that impatient stuff. And that's how they're going to respond. So the second half of the screen here is persons with dementia will typically mirror our actions. They're going to mirror what they see. So the words, while they're trying to process the words, if they do, or how long it takes them, they're going to pick up on what they see, tone of voice, facial expressions, emotions, how we carry ourselves, that nonverbal stuff. And most of the time, that's what they will respond to, or that's what they will mirror. Okay. Particularly in the middle and later stages. If they see it, they can do it. Or if they see it, they're going to mirror it. So we have to be very masterful again in our nonverbal. But it's also a great idea to start using more visual cues, because if I know persons with dementia are going to pick up on the visual, well, then why don't I help them with my visual communication, visual cues that I use? Their ability is they can pick up on the visual. So I need to adapt my care to use more visual cues. Right? And this is gestures. It's doing the action with them so they see it. So if I want them to brush their teeth, I'm going to mimic or brush my teeth alongside with them. I'm going to put on my coat, or I'm going to take off my shirt because we're going to get washed up, right? They're going to pick up on these gestures, mimes, if you will, what they see, and they can process that so much faster than they can the words. Right? A lot of the times I can act something out or do it, and y'all will understand what I'm saying. I don't really ever need words. So if I understand those are the abilities of somebody with dementia, then I need to start using more visual cues. You know, holding a fork up to indicate it's time to eat, or, hey, let's take something. Yeah, let's get something to drink. Well, they may not understand the words, go ahead and drink some of your drink. But if they see me do it and I point, they're going to process that faster and be able to do it. Okay. So I asked them, this is another one of those things that we just really need to be masterful at and start incorporating these visual cues, because it's going to help your communication with them so much. And it's just going to make life a little bit easier. So I'm going to quickly go through some do nots, and then we're going to go through some do's, some communication do's, and then we'll talk about some self-care. But on the screen here, when we're talking about communication, we want it to be compassionate communication, okay? And I say, well, don't reason with them because you're not going to win. That reasoning part leaves or is affected by dementia pretty early on for most people. Arguing, You're not going to win with somebody with dementia. You probably already tried it. You might have tried it 100 times, but arguing with somebody is just a futile effort. We don't want to confront them. And this is confront them that they've forgotten something. We don't want to quiz them. I said, question their recent memory. And I see this happen. I've had it in my family, but they will go on a quiz. Hey, who is this person? They might show them a photo, or you're, like at a family dinner or something. Who's this person? Or they'll come up to them and say, you know who I am, right? Who am I? Who am I? Well, don't quiz them, right? Let's give them, just come up and say, hey, Ralph, I'm Jamie. I am your favorite step granddaughter. Let's give them some context. Let's give them some help here, right? Don't remind them that they've forgotten again. Don't use that word, remember. And don't take it personally. And it's so much easier for me to say that, write it on a slide and say it to you. But please know that when somebody with dementia says something that's uncharacteristic, or does something that's uncharacteristic, or something they never would have done in the past, please know that that is dementia talking. It's not your person. So, or that's dementia acting that way. It's not your person. They're just doing the best they can with the disease. So some do's with compassionate communication. Nonverbal communication is your number one do. But also just give only the needed information, particularly if we're giving instructions. We want them to do something. We don't need to fill it in with all this fluff because we are uncomfortable with the silence. It's just one instruction or one thought at a time. Allow them to do that and then move on to the next thing. And let's say it is brushing your teeth. Well, there's a lot of steps to brushing your teeth. And mom can still brush her teeth. She just needs help, whether it's a verbal cue or a visual cue. So I would break it down. Let's get the toothbrush. Let's go to the drawer, pull open the drawer, get that toothbrush. Right. Now here's the toothpaste. Unscrew the tap off the toothpaste. Great. Now squeeze the toothpaste on the. So we're doing it one thought at a time. And once they're successful, we move on to the next. Does this take more time? Yes. But are they still able to do and take care of themselves? Yes. And what's more important? Them still being able to do and take care of themselves. And this other one here, allow 20 seconds before repeating instructions or sentences. In 20 seconds, it takes about 20 seconds for somebody with dementia in early to mid stages to process what we've just told them. And 20 seconds is a little longer than you think. So I'm going to give you all an instruction and I'm going to wait 20 seconds so you have an idea what it sounds like or it doesn't sound like. So I'm going to give you the instruction to, put on your coat, and then I'm going to wait 20 seconds. So starting now, put on your coat. That's 20 seconds. So 20 seconds is a little bit longer than we think. And generally, you might have found yourself saying, did I miss something? Or found yourself go ahead and filling in that silence. But we need to allow about 20 seconds for a person to process that information. We want to make sure and give them choices on what they can do. And this is limiting choices. It might be, do you want to wear your red shirt or your white shirt? They're still choosing. Do you want chicken or fish for dinner? Do you want to go outside or do you want to do stretches inside? We're giving them choice so they can still make their own choices, but it's stuff they can do. And then using the words. So the words are important. I mentioned this, but using words that are friendly and they suggest that they're a team. So we want to do with our person. We don't ever want to do to or take over. So we want to do it together. I could use your help. Let's do this together. I need you to help me with. Instead of you need to do this or I told you to do that. I'm going to do this to you. So it's just changing our words to make sure that we're more of a team and that it's much more friendly. And then the word we do use, so we're not going to use remember, but we do want to use the word okay. And the word okay, what we're saying is that I heard you and I see you. I heard what you said. So okay is really I hear you and you're important and what you have to say is important. So all we have to say the word okay, in that we are acknowledging that they've been heard, and that we are acknowledging that they've been heard. We don't necessarily have to agree with what they're saying, because if you get accused of stealing their money, we don't want to say, okay, yeah, I did, but you stole my money. Okay. Then we're going to fix it, right? Or, you're cheating on me or whatever it is. Okay. Then we're going to fix it. And we're going to use therapeutic stories. So therapeutic stories are a story. Some people might call them little white lies, or you might have heard them called fiblets. But we call them therapeutic stories because it really can be used as a therapy, and it helps prolong dignity, and it meets the person where they're at. Instead of arguing with them and saying, no, I didn't steal your money. Remember, you had dementia and you signed over your bank accounts because you can't be in charge of your finances anymore. That's not meeting that person where they're at. And we're confronting them, and we're starting an argument that we're not going to win. Okay. Because remember, they don't remember that they don't remember that they don't remember. They're living with a brain disease. We have to accommodate. So we say, okay, I'll tell you what, I'm going to call the bank right now, and I'm going to get my name talking off all those accounts, and we're going to get this fixed immediately because this is unacceptable. Then we go on, we call, don't call the bank, we call somebody that's trusted, and you say, you know what? Hey, Mr. So-and-so, Bank of America, I need to get my name taken off Mr. Smith's bank accounts because yes, that's right. Just take them all off. I don't want to be nope. Yep, take them off. That's right. Thank you so much. We got that taken care of. Tell you what, we're going to talk about distractions here in a second. We have to go to their world because they cannot come to ours. That's one of our abilities that we have, is to be able to accommodate and meet them where they're at and be creative and go to their world, because they can't come to ours. They're doing the best they can from moment to moment. So we don't want to get emotional. We just fix it. Another example, if they're looking for somebody who's passed away, do we want to tell them, well, they passed away a couple of years ago. Don't you remember? We went to the funeral and everything. Because that can be really traumatic for them to really, because if they truly don't remember and they're hearing for the first time this person passed away, then it's like they're reliving that, and we don't want to do that. So we use a therapeutic story, and it needs to probably match, if they were in the military, maybe while they're deployed, they're going to be gone for a period of time. They're out fixing fence on the ranch. Is that something they would have always done? Or they're at work, they're sitting in traffic. Traffic is horrible today. They're going to be a little bit late. Tell you what, let's go ahead and start dinner. That way it can be ready for them. And then we distract them. So we say, okay, we do the therapeutic story. So we fix it. And then we do an immediate distraction. And the best distractions are food. Sweeter the better. Kids, animals, and music. So that, they're sitting in traffic. They're going to be, let's go ahead and start dinner. While we're in the kitchen, maybe we just happen to find some cookies, right? So we're eating some cookies. Maybe they can help. They're setting the table. And then we've also changed the environment. So wherever it might be that they have, they're accusing you, or they're having a hard time, let's go ahead and change the environment, okay? Or we start some music. Hey, you know what? I wanted to show you this new picture I got of my cute little grandkid. I just wanted to show you. I know you just love kids, and I thought it was the cutest thing ever. Come with me. I want to show you this cute picture. We want to distract them so persons with dementia can hold on to one thought at a time. So we want to make sure and change those thoughts, because we fixed what they wanted, and we go and change, help their brains kind of reset, right? So with this, and this is validating where they're at. So we meet them where they're at. We go with the flow. We respond to the feelings that they're communicating rather than the words, because the words they may be using may not make sense, or we're trying to make sense of it. It's not working. We have to get behind the feelings, because if they are expressing agitation, or they're worried about something, or they're fearful, or they're frustrated, or they're angry, we need to meet this, because we want to meet that emotion. And it's okay to say, you seem really agitated by this. Yeah. You're worried about, they're not going to make it home. So, and we say the emotion, then that validates them, just like we want our emotions to be validated too, right? So we got to be generous and gracious, particularly if their expressions are a little bit more challenging or a little bit more difficult, but realize that a person with dementia, they are doing the best they can from moment to moment. And really, if they are having a challenging expression or a difficult expression, it's because they're having a hard time. They're having a hard time. They're not trying to give you a hard time. They're having a hard time. And we're the ones with the 3-pound brain that can meet them where they're at and accommodate. So a few other things that we can do if their anxiety or their frustration or agitation is ramped up or it's amplified, then they are not being understood. So we need to really match their emotions, and it's okay for us to match their emotions again, because they're going to mirror us, right? And if they're agitated, we can say, this is agitating. This is so agitating. I'm so sorry this is happening. I tell you what, we're going to fix this, but I'm going to be agitated with them. I'm going to distract them by maybe moving them to another environment. I'm going to use a therapeutic story. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to use some other words and gestures to say, this is so agitating. That's irritating. Tell me more. Come over here and tell me more. And we're going to go sit in another area of the house that's a lot quieter. Or maybe we go outside. Or maybe along the way, we do grab some water or something really sweet to drink so we can also get something that we can use as a distraction a little bit later on. But we meet them where they're at, and then we start, because we validate that emotion, and then we start to calm it down, because they're going to mirror us too. We've met them where they're at, and we met them, they're being heard, they're being seen, and we're their ally now. Now we're not, come on, let's go fix this. We're going to come over here, we're going to go over here, and we're going to talk about this over here. Or I'm going to have that landlord come right now and get those kids out of that back bedroom because they're being way too loud. I'm going to call them up right now. We're going to tell you what, while he's messing with those kids, let's you and I come over here. And as we're going over there, we start deep breathing. We start slowing down our gestures. Our tone of voice becomes more calm and more reassuring. Our facial expressions starting to soften and relax. And then they can mirror our nonverbal communication, mirror our gestures. You see how this works? And this takes, it takes practice to do, but it really comes down to that core. What is our nonverbal communication? Because that's what they can mirror. And we got to meet them where they're at, because that's what we do with the 3-pound brain. We are accommodating the disease. So for us to be able to do this, we have to practice good self-care, because it does take a lot of energy to meet somebody where they're at and try and understand and validate their emotions and do this nonverbal stuff on top of all the other care that we're doing for them. So we need to practice good self-care. And honestly, there are more slides in this self-care section of this presentation that I'll ever be able to get to. I knew that going into it, but there's a few things I want to highlight, and then we'll open it up for some questions as well. But there's 3 things I really want to talk about. One of them is listen to your friends and family. If you have friends and family that come up to you and say, you seem really stressed out, or you look really tired, or you seem like you're burnt out, or, they're saying these things that you might take offense to at first. But really what we want to say is we need to listen to our friends and family when they start to express their concerns, because we're not able to really see the forest through the trees, really. So we want to take a look at, and I'm saying trusted friends and family, and help them gauge where our stress level is at, or maybe our compassion fatigue levels are at. Because they'll be able to say, they're going to be a little bit more quicker to see warning signs or when we're about to hit the wall. Because we want to be preventative, not reactive. We don't want to actually hit the burnout wall. We want to take care of it before we get there. And we can do that by listening to trusted friends and family. The first step in resolving burnout is to recognize that we are suffering from it. So we need to be really open to what other people are saying. Even if at first, they may not say it the right way, but we need to be listening to what they're saying. And if they really are concerned about it, so they're making those remarks, then we need to look at it as a red flag and be like, okay, maybe I do need to practice some more self-care. Maybe I do need to slow down. Maybe I do need to get some extra help. Okay, because self-care is not self-indulgence, it's self-preservation. And I fully 100% have lived it and agree with it. And it's just a truth. No one person can do everything. I can't do anything, but I cannot do everything. And how many of you are taking on everything? So some other best tips on supporting yourself is you have to make your health, and I'm saying your physical health, your emotional health, your mental health, your spiritual health, I'm saying your whole well-being, you have to make it a priority. When was the last time you went to the doctor for yourself? When was the last time you took some time for yourself? When was the last time you did something that you actually enjoy doing? Has it been too long? Can you not even remember the last time that you did it? We have to make sure that our whole health, those all areas of our lives, we have to make them a priority. Because if we're not able to take care of ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, we're not going to be able to care for our person in front of us. We're just not. Our bodies will start to give out, our souls, our spirits will start to give out, and we're not going to be able to continue to give if we don't provide care for ourselves. So whether we feel like we need a break or we don't feel like we need a break, it's important that you start scheduling some personal time. So I'm talking to those of you that might be early on in your caregiving journey and you think, and you're at the stage where I've got all this energy, I am organized, we've got this stuff, and well, I want you to go ahead and start scheduling in time, whether you think you need it right now or not, because there will come a time when you absolutely need it, and it's going to be easier for you to go ahead and take it because you have been taking this personal time. This is also for those of you that are right smack dab in the middle of your caregiving journey, whether you're a professional or a family or you've been doing it for a long, long time, and maybe you need to reintroduce this time for yourself. Because I promise you, and I can attest, Holly can attest, Marty can attest, that if you do not take care of yourself, the statistics are too high to say that you will pass away before your loved one does because of the stress and the demands of caregiving. And I believe, and Holly, I think could probably put it in chat, but I believe it's spouse caregivers. It's over 60% of spousal caregivers that have passed away before their loved ones that they were caring for passed away due to the stress of caregiving. Children percentage is also pretty high as well. We have to be very careful to guard the time that we set aside for ourselves. This is a non-negotiable. I talked about some essential care tips and non-negotiables earlier. This is absolutely a non-negotiable. And how we can do this is the third thing I want to talk about, and then I will leave it open for some questions. But building your team. This is, if you look at your caregiving role as an organization or a team, whatever metaphor you want to use, but you put on there, this is Jamie Caregiving Incorporated. And I'm going to compare my caregiving role to somebody that runs a, well-run organization or a well-run team. Well, in those organizations and teams, there's not just one person doing it all. It can't. I mean, you've got a person that's in charge. You got the CEO, the big boss, the coach. And they're making the calls, they're doing the hiring, the firing, they're making the plays, all that stuff. And they're still in charge of that. That's where you're at. But they have built their team, their organization with people that have helped them be successful. So where are those areas that you can pull in others to help you be successful? And it might be, yes, we want to make sure our doctors and our pharmacists are part of that team. We've got good, trusted doctors. We talk to our pharmacist about it. It might be we have some home care that comes in, and we trust these people, or we're using a day program to help with this. This is all part of my care team. But I also might need some people to come in and help with the legal and financial paperwork, doing our taxes, all these things. I can't do this. I'm not an expert at it anyway. So who can I bring in as part of my team to help make sure that I'm successful, right? Maybe it's a neighbor or a trusted community group or even a church group that helps come in and maybe does some just chores around the house, or they can help with the handyman stuff around the house because I'm no longer able to do it, never knew how to do it, and now my husband can't do it, whatever it is, but I have that team in here to come help. And, they're spraying for bugs because it's that time of the year. They're pulling weeds. Maybe they're doing yard work. Maybe I need transportation to and from certain areas. Maybe I need somebody to help with groceries. So we're building this team to help me be successful because no one person can do it all. Just like no one coach does it all or no one CEO does it all. They hire people and strategically put people on their team to help them be successful. And that's where we want to structure our caregiving role. And this is where delegation comes in. We need to let go of these small things. So we can also focus on the big part of caregiving, and that's continuing to be that spouse, that kid, that child, friend, sibling, whatever it is to that caregiver. Yeah, I'm still in charge and I can still make the big calls and the big plays, but I'm also still, I'm not doing it all. So I can still have that relationship we've had and nurture that relationship that we've had. But I need to have this team built to be able to do that. And this is a good way to start asking for and accepting help, some really good tips on that. And we got to be honest about where our strengths and our weaknesses are. We need to be honest about where we can delegate out certain things as well and be realistic. And these are some good tips on how to get help. So it's asking strong asks. We want to be specific. We don't want to, somebody comes up to us and say, hey, I want to help. How can I just let me know when I can help you? 90% of people really do mean that. Not all of them, but 90 to 95% really do want to help. They just don't know how. And we need to tell them how. So we need to have either a mental list or a written down list on us and just say, you know what, I could really use help with the yard work over this next couple of weeks. Or I could use help with my taxes. Do you know anybody, or could you help me find somebody to help with my taxes? Or it is, I could use some groceries, or you know what, I really just need somebody to come and sit and visit with my loved one because they need that socialization, and so do I. Can you come for an hour? Can you come for coffee? Can you come for lunch? Whatever it is. So we don't want to be prepared, or we do want to be prepared to ask, right? So we want to have this stuff ready to go. And so the next several slides, there's a lot more slides in here about self-care tips. How do we change our perspective? Because our thoughts, how we talk to ourselves, what we think of ourselves really are going to influence our emotions and our beliefs and our feelings. And what we feel and believe about ourselves is going to influence how we act in our decisions and how we behave, which will influence our thoughts, how we think about ourselves, etc. So this is a really great, there's several slides here about how to change our perspective on our caregiving roles, or really just how to change our perspective in life in general. But there's also a lot of activities in here, suggested activities that you can do to find joy, but also talking about those areas of our life, our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual areas of our life, and how we can renew and kind of fill those empty cups that we have. We might be spiritually drained. We might be emotionally drained. We might be mentally drained. So there's some really great tips on how can I renew those cups in me so I can continue to take care of ourselves, or take care of myself. And then this quote, a person too busy to take care of one's own health is like a mechanic too busy to take care of one's own tools or cars. If we don't take care of our tools or our cars, they're going to build up rust, they're going to break, they're not going to be able to be used anymore, and they're going to need to be thrown out. Well, it's the same. It's the same with us, physically, mentally, and emotionally. There's some great information about deep breathing, exercise, how to use your diet for stress management, some stuff about the mind diet, which is also, you can reduce your risk for dementia on that, but how to nurture your soul, how to use art and music for relaxation and stress management, but mindfulness, how to journal to use that. And a list of community resources here. You see you have James L. West, and then you have the North Central Texas Area Agency on Aging, and all the information that resources that they provide. But we do want to make sure that we practice self-care daily. It is not selfish. We want to build that support team, ask for and accept help when it's offered. Use all the community resources that we have, and there's a lot. I know that Marty can send you more information about all the resources in the North Texas Central area. Have a sense of humor, practice positivity, self-compassion, and be an advocate for yourself and loved one. Because dementia can be treated with knowledge, continuous skill building, which y'all are doing today, making quality of life important with commitment, flexibility, practice, and compassion. Become better, not bitter. And this is our information. And information about our continuing education credits. I'll say, I know Marty will send out a follow-up email with the SurveyMonkey evaluation. If you want the 1.5 CE credits for social work, nursing, LPC, or certificate of attendance for today's program, it is required that you complete that SurveyMonkey. Please give us about 4 weeks to process all of those and get them back to you through your email. Marty, do you want to?
Yes. Also, I was actually trying to grab real quick yours to put it in the chat, but I'll come back a bit while you're answering questions. Yes. In addition to the SurveyMonkey survey, there's also be a Google survey. As you close out of Zoom today, it should ask you if you would like to take a brief survey. That will take you to our Google survey. That's for our information and reporting back on the goals and objectives we set forth when we applied for our funding. And so please, we ask that you do both, but please know that the SurveyMonkey evaluation is required if you want a certificate. And so I'm going to, if you want to go to the next slide real quick and talk about next month, and then I'm going to shut my video off so I can find your post survey and put it in the chat.
Perfect. Thanks, Marty. Yes. So we will be back next month, May 13th, to talk about what to expect as dementia progresses. So this is a big one. It's one of the most popular programs that we have. So hopefully you can attend and ask questions there. And then I will see if there are questions. Holly, do you have anything?
I think I got most
in
of
the
them answered.
Okay.
I was trying to keep up with them as they came in, but everybody can continue to type in for another 4 minutes.
Yes, they can.
Thank you for being in chat too.
Comments on the video, and I saw someone put a link to the video. You can also find it if you go to YouTube and you put bookcase analogy dementia, it will just come right up. And
there's the question about, is it true people with dementia prefer routine? Is it okay to bring them somewhere different for lunch, for example? Yes. So routine is, everybody really does better on a routine, but you don't have to be militant about it. You know, it's like we waking up around the same time and the activities we do throughout the day are consistent. So if we do exercise before breakfast, and then we have a leisurely breakfast, then we get ready for the day, and then maybe we do another activity or do some chores, and then we do lunch. So if you want to go to lunch somewhere different, great. I would just suggest doing it around the same time. And typically, if you have more complex things that you want to do, like doctor's appointments or even visits or some fun to do it earlier in the day, because most people with dementia have a little bit more energy and stamina earlier in the day. As the day gets later, there's more tired, we're more tired and more restless. I'm included with that, right? So I may not be able to hold my emotions in as I could earlier in the day. Good question.
And Jamie, there's a question about convincing someone to get out of their room to do activities or go to a day program without setting off in anger.
Good question. And that's, of course, it depends on the person, but if we're wanting them to try a day program or come do an activity, I wouldn't say we need to go do this activity or you need to get out of your room and go do this day program. It would be, you kind of want to make it their idea, right? And or talk to them about, I went to this activity. I had the best time. I would love if you could come with me I want you to be a part of it because I want you. So it makes it more about you than it does them, right? I could use you. I want you to do this with me, things like that, and get them out of the room. With day programs, I know our day program runs across this a lot, but they may tell you that they're not having a good time or that they don't want to go, but once they're there, generally they have a great time. And you can ask for photos and what did they do at that day program. But the story that they tell you might be something different. But that's why we want to work closely with those, whether it's a day program or it's in a community or something like that. Well, it's like, what really did happen? How did they really respond to this? So, Holly, did you have any other insights on that? Or
yeah, making it about you or making it that they are going to volunteer or going to work. Lots of times that helps. I need your help with. We don't ever make it about them. We can't figure out how to do anything. I need your help with, or I thought we'd go down here and volunteer with these old people because everybody's old. No, they're not old, but everybody else is. And tell those therapeutic stories. Yeah. There is a question in there about, does AAA have a caregiver day or half day in-house retreat for caregivers or conference.
Can you email that to me? I'm just putting my email in right now. If you could email that to me, and I will pass that on to the appropriate person in regards to that, and get you an answer.
And I know it's 3:30, but I will, because that triggered something, or reminded me of something, that there is the guide program, which is new. It's through CMS. So if you're a Medicare or Medicaid or even dually eligible, you have the opportunity to see if you meet the criteria for guide. And this is guide program. You can ask your doctor, or you can call us and we can get you in touch with other groups that do it, but you can get money through Medicare or Medicaid for respite, for day programs, for education. And this is respite that, or persons that come in your home, or you can do some overnight stays or day programs as well. And there's several organizations in North Texas that are participating, and we can get you connected to that or see if you meet the criteria for it. But this is free money from the government to help you with your caregiving journey.
Very good. And we're getting ready to do one on respite care too later this month with Donnie and the respite care resources, and the link for that will be in the follow-up email as well. And I put the link to Jamie's survey, my case survey, in the follow-up. In the chat, and that will all of that will go out in the follow-up email, but that will not go out till tomorrow. I have a reporting deadline today on one of my funding, and so that always consumes a good part of my time. So it will go out tomorrow sometime. And just so you know, sometimes when they don't go out the next day, it's usually because I'm waiting on information on an event, because I try to have as many of the future events as I can at the bottom so you guys can see what's coming up and sign up for them. But we should get that out tomorrow to y'all.
And any questions we didn't get to, if you want to email us or email Marty, he'll get them over to us, and we will get you answers as quick as we can. Thank y'all so much.
You guys, Jamie, thank you so much once again. It's great stuff. Holly, thanks for joining us. Love to have you always, and love to see your smile. And we appreciate everybody for joining us. You all have just a wonderful day.
Thanks, you too.
Take care. Bye-bye.